The champagne bottle popped like a gunshot across the sales floor. Everyone turned to watch Nico Wallace raise his glass, that familiar smirk spreading across his face. My stomach dropped as I realized what was coming. "Great news, team," Nico announced, his voice carrying over the afternoon chatter. "We just closed the biggest enterprise deal of the quarter, $2.7 million. The room erupted in cheers and applause. I stood frozen by my desk, phone still warm in my hand from the client's signature notification that had arrived 20 minutes ago. "And I'm pleased to announce," Nico continued, pausing for dramatic effect, "that effective immediately, Astrid Park will be taking over as the primary account lead for this exciting new partnership." More applause. Astrid beamed from across the room, her cheeks flushed with surprise and pride. She waved at the crowd like she'd just won an award. I kept my face neutral, though my heart hammered against my ribs. Not once had Nico mentioned my name. Not once had he acknowledged who actually closed this deal. I sipped my water slowly, thumb hovering over my phone screen where the signed contract still glowed. Inside my head, 2 words echoed like a mantra: continuity clause. The title of my story flashed through my mind like a neon sign. I brought in a $2.7 million deal without telling my manager, then found out he'd promised it to his favorite intern. I forced myself to walk over to Astrid. "Congratulations," I said, keeping my voice steady. She looked confused for a split second, then smiled wider. "Thanks, Francis. I can't believe it. Nico says I really impressed him with my presentation skills." I nodded and smiled back, though inside I was calculating my next moves. Nico was already working the room, accepting congratulations like he'd closed the deal himself. He caught my eye and gave me a little wave, as if I were just another teammate celebrating someone else's victory. But I wasn't angry. Angry people make mistakes. I was something much more dangerous. I was prepared. 3 months ago, I'd learned the hard way that Nico had a habit of stealing credit from his team. That's when I'd started building this deal completely off his radar. Every call, every email, every document had been carefully planned and protected. I pulled out my phone and opened a new text message. I typed 1 word to myself: continuity. Then I deleted it and smiled. Some lessons are best taught through experience. Let me tell you who I am. My name is Francis Gould, and I learned a long time ago that the loudest voice in the room isn't always the smartest one. I grew up in Ohio, where my dad taught me that preparation beats panic every single time. I don't yell in meetings. I don't throw tantrums when things don't go my way. Instead, I write everything down, save every email, and let the facts speak for themselves. When people underestimate quiet women, they forget we're usually the ones taking notes. Nico made his first mistake when he assumed I'd roll over like his other victims. He made his second mistake when he announced Astrid would be taking over my deal without checking the contract first. I've been in enterprise sales for 6 years. I know how to build relationships with clients who hate drama and love results. I know how to structure deals that protect everyone involved. Most importantly, I know how to make sure the right person gets credit for their work. As I watched Nico bask in applause that should have been mine, I thought about something my dad used to say. "Paper doesn't care about politics, Francis. It just tells the truth." Paper would be speaking very soon. 3 months earlier, I'd learned exactly who Nico really was. I'd spent weeks building a relationship with a mid-sized tech company, nurturing them through our sales process. When they finally signed a contract worth $800,000, I was thrilled. Then Nico called an all-hands meeting. He stood at the front of the conference room and announced that he'd successfully closed his deal. My name never came up. When I tried to speak, he cut me off with a wave. "Francis provided some excellent support during the process," he said dismissively. "Great teamwork all around." Support. Like I'd been his assistant instead of the person who'd built the entire relationship from scratch. That's when I realized I had 2 choices: keep feeding Nico's ego and my own frustration, or find a different way to work. I chose option 3, work smarter. For my next big prospect, I kept everything quiet. I didn't update Nico on my calls. I didn't copy him on important emails. I built the relationship carefully, professionally, but completely under his radar. When legal asked if I needed any special contract terms, I had a very specific request. I asked for a key personnel continuity clause, something that would name me personally as the account lead if the client requested it. It was standard practice, but only if the client specifically asked for it. The client was different from any I'd worked with before. Sylvie Duffy was the VP of Operations at a Fortune 100 manufacturing company. She had no patience for sales theater or fancy presentations. "I don't want a circus," she told me during our first call. "I want one person I can hold accountable. Someone who knows our business and can solve our problems without playing politics." I spent 2 months earning that trust. While other salespeople were sending flashy brochures, I was diving deep into their integration requirements. I studied their security protocols, mapped out their data flows, and learned their compliance standards. Sylvie appreciated the attention to detail. "Most vendors just want to talk about features," she said during one of our calls. "You actually understand what we need." When we finally got to contract negotiations, Sylvie made a specific request to our legal team. She wanted me named as the primary account contact in the agreement. Not the company, me personally. "I've worked with Frances for months," she wrote in an email to our general counsel. "She understands our requirements better than anyone. Please put it in writing that she'll be our main point of contact throughout this partnership." Legal was happy to add the clause. It was standard practice when clients requested specific personnel. They had no idea I'd been hoping for exactly this protection. The key personnel continuity clause looked innocent enough in the contract. Just a few lines buried in Section 12. Client has requested Frances Gould serve as primary account lead. Any change to this designation requires written client approval. Removal of designated personnel without client consent may result in contract termination. Most people would skip right over it. It was legal language that seemed routine and boring. But to me, it was a shield that would protect everything I'd worked for. I made sure to save 3 copies of the contract draft. One in my work email, one in my personal cloud storage, and one printed copy in a folder at home. If Nico tried to edit the terms later, I'd have proof of what we'd actually agreed to. The beautiful thing about the clause was that it wasn't sneaky or underhanded. It was completely legitimate. The client had specifically requested it, and legal had approved it. Everything was documented and above board. I also started keeping detailed records of every interaction with the account. Call recordings, email threads, meeting notes. Everything was saved and organized. If anyone ever questioned who was really managing this relationship, the evidence would be crystal clear. As I reviewed the contract one final time before sending it to Sylvie, I felt a sense of calm settle over me. Win or lose, I'd done everything by the book. Closing the deal took another 6 weeks. Sylvie's team had questions about data security, integration timelines, and support structures. I worked with our technical team to provide detailed answers for every concern. The procurement process was complex. Multiple stakeholders needed to review and approve the agreement. I coordinated with Sylvie's legal team, their IT department, and their finance group. Each conversation brought us closer to the finish line. On a Tuesday night in March, I was still at my desk at 9 p.m. when my phone buzzed. Sylvie had sent the signed contract. "Thanks for your patience through this process, Frances," her email read. "Looking forward to working together." I stared at the signature page for a long moment. $2.7 million. The biggest deal I'd ever closed, and I'd done it completely on my own. I saved the signed contract to my secure folder and made backup copies. Then I sat back in my chair and allowed myself a small smile. It was done. I decided to wait until morning to log the deal in our CRM system. Let me have this moment of quiet victory before the chaos started. I had no idea that Nico had already been planning how to take credit for work he didn't even know existed. The next morning, I logged the closed deal in our CRM system. I listed myself as the originating salesperson and primary account contact. The system automatically flagged it as a major win and sent notifications to management. Within an hour, Nico appeared at my desk. His eyes were bright with excitement and calculation. "Frances, I just saw the notification about the big deal. Congratulations on the support work." He emphasized the word support, like he'd already decided how this story would be told. Thanks, I said carefully. I'm excited to keep working with Sylvie's team. Actually, I think this might be a great opportunity for Astrid to take on more responsibility, Nico said, glancing over at his favorite intern. She did such a nice job on that presentation last month. This could be perfect for her development. My blood ran cold, but I kept my expression neutral. The client specifically requested to work with me. I'm sure they'll adapt, Nico waved dismissively. Besides, you've got other prospects to focus on. We need to keep the pipeline full. That afternoon, he scheduled a floor-wide meeting for the next day. The subject line read, Celebrating Recent Wins, Team Recognition. I knew exactly what was coming. Nico was going to rewrite history in front of the entire sales team, and Astrid was going to get the credit for months of work she'd never done. But I was ready. I had 20 minutes before Nico's announcement meeting. I walked calmly to the legal department and knocked on our general counsel's door. Hi, Paulina. Do you have a quick minute? I have a question about the continuity clause in the Duffy manufacturing contract. Paulina Reyes looked up from her computer. Of course. What's the issue? I pulled out my phone and showed her the signed contract. The client specifically requested me as the primary account lead, and we included the continuity clause. I just want to make sure I understand what that means if there are any personnel changes. Paulina scanned the relevant section. This clause is pretty clear. Any change to your role would require written approval from Sylvie Duffy. Without that approval, they could terminate the entire agreement. So if someone tried to reassign the account without the client's consent, that would be a breach of contract, Paulina said firmly. The client could walk away from the entire $2.7 million deal. I forwarded her a copy of Sylvie's original email requesting me by name. Just for your records, I said. Paulina read it and nodded. This clause is definitely binding, Francis. The client was very specific about wanting to work with you. I thanked her and walked back to the conference room. My phone buzzed with a text from legal. Clause is binding. Let me know if you need anything else. The transition meeting felt like a corporate coup happening in real time. Nico had commandeered the main conference room and set up his laptop to project the CRM system onto the big screen. So as we discussed, Astrid will be taking over this account effective immediately, he said, clicking through screens. Let's update the system to reflect the new ownership structure. I watched him change the account owner from my name to Astrid's. He deleted my discovery call notes and replaced them with a generic template. He even changed the close date to make it look like Astrid had been involved from the beginning. Francis, can you bring Astrid up to speed on any outstanding items? Nico asked, not bothering to look at me. I pulled out my phone and took a screenshot of his screen, capturing the audit log that showed him making changes to a closed deal. Of course, I said, but let's make sure we're staying compliant with the contract terms. What do you mean? Nico asked impatiently. The client specifically requested me as their primary contact. It's in the continuity clause. Maybe we should check with legal before making any changes. Nico's jaw tightened. I'll handle the legal side. Just focus on the handoff. I opened my email app and composed a message to Paulina and our compliance team. The subject line read, Change in account owner post signature, client continuity clause attached. I attached the screenshot and the original contract, then hit send. My phone buzzed immediately. Please pause all account transitions pending legal review. Here are the updated last 15 chapters with 50 words removed from each. I just got a message from legal, I said, showing Nico the email. They want us to pause the transition until they review the continuity clause. Nico's face went red. This is ridiculous. I'm the manager here. I decide account assignments. I understand, but the client made a specific contractual request. Legal just wants to make sure we handle it properly. Astrid looked confused and worried. Is there a problem with the account? No problem at all, I said gently. Just some paperwork to sort out. Nico slammed his laptop shut. Fine. We'll revisit this after legal clears up whatever bureaucratic nonsense they're worried about. But I could see the wheels turning in his head. He was already planning his next move, probably figuring out how to pressure legal or find some loophole. After the meeting, I called Sylvie. Hi, it's Francis. I wanted to give you a quick heads up that you might see some new names appearing in communications about your account. Are you comfortable with that? Sylvie didn't hesitate. We signed this contract because we wanted to work with you specifically. If you're being removed from the account, we'll need to reconsider the entire agreement. Would you mind putting that in writing? Absolutely. Sylvie's email arrived within an hour. Duffy Manufacturing signed our recent agreement specifically to work with Frances Gould. She has demonstrated exceptional understanding of our business requirements. If Frances is removed from this account without our consent, we will need to reconsider our contractual commitment. I forwarded the email to Paulina with a simple note. Client confirmation regarding the continuity clause. Paulina called me 5 minutes later. Francis, this email makes the situation very clear. Any change to your role without client approval would put the entire contract at risk. So what happens now? I'm going to send a note to all stakeholders confirming that you remain the primary account lead per the client's contractual request. Anyone who wants to make changes will need to get written client approval first. I felt a wave of relief wash over me. The system was working exactly as designed. That afternoon, Nico appeared at my desk again. This time, he was less friendly. "Close my office door," he said. "We need to talk." I followed him into his office, noting the tension in his shoulders. "You made me look ridiculous in that meeting," he said, dropping the pretense of politeness. "I just followed the contract and the client's request," I replied evenly. "You think legal is going to save you?" Nico's smile turned nasty. "I'm going to open a policy review." The next morning, I found an email from HR. Policy review notification. Please provide documentation regarding the Duffy Manufacturing account per management request. Nico had actually done it. He was trying to turn this into a disciplinary issue. I spent an hour organizing my files. Every email, every call recording, every meeting note was carefully organized by date. I included my expense reports showing business meals with Sylvie, all approved through proper channels. I added the timeline showing how I'd built the relationship from first contact to signed contract. Most importantly, I included all communications with legal about the continuity clause, showing that everything had been approved and documented. I sent the complete package to HR with a cover letter explaining the situation objectively. No emotion, no accusations, just facts. 2 hours later, my phone rang. It was our compliance officer. "Francis, I've reviewed your documentation. Everything looks completely proper. However, I do have questions about changes made to the CRM system after the contract was signed." I sent her the screenshot I'd taken of Nico editing the account ownership. The timestamp showed exactly when he'd made the changes, and the audit log proved he'd deleted my original notes. "This is concerning," she said. "I'm going to need to speak with your manager about his rationale for these edits." While HR investigated Nico's policy complaint against me, compliance launched their own investigation into his CRM edits. The irony was perfect. His attempt to get me in trouble had backfired spectacularly. I went about my normal routine, working on other prospects and following up with existing clients. But I could feel the tension building in the office. People were whispering in corners, and Nico looked increasingly stressed. Then I got a call from Astrid. "Francis, can we talk? I'm really confused about this whole situation." We met in the break room during lunch. Astrid looked nervous and upset. "Nico told me I was going to lead the Duffy account because I did such good work on the final presentation. But now HR is asking me questions about my involvement in the deal, and I don't know what to say." I felt bad for her. She was young and eager, and Nico had put her in an impossible situation. "What presentation did you work on?" I asked gently. "The slide deck about our product features. But honestly, Francis, I only worked on it for a few hours. I don't know anything about their technical requirements." "It's okay," I said. "You're talented, and you'll have plenty of opportunities to lead your own deals." Astrid looked relieved, but worried. Nico promised me a full-time job if I handled this account well. I felt genuinely sorry for Astrid. She'd been caught in the middle of Nico's scheme without really understanding what was happening. He dangled a job offer in front of a young intern to make her complicit in stealing credit for work she'd never done. The best thing you can do is tell the truth, I advised her. Be honest about what you did and didn't do. HR appreciates honesty, and it will protect you in the long run. Astrid nodded, but she still looked worried. What if Nico gets angry at me? Let me worry about Nico, I said. You just focus on doing good work. That afternoon, I noticed some interesting activity around the executive offices. Our CFO, Marta Nguyen, was having hushed conversations with Paulina and the head of HR. Marta was known for her no-nonsense approach to business and her hatred of anything that put the company at risk. At 4 p.m., I got a text from Paulina. Can you come to my office? Marta wants to review your documentation. I grabbed my files and walked to the legal department. Marta was sitting at Paulina's conference table with a stack of papers. Francis, I've been reviewing this situation. Marta said without preamble. Your files are impressively organized. The documentation is pristine. Thank you. I try to keep good records. I'm going to be looping in the General Counsel for a complete audit of the account timeline. The internal audit moved quickly. Marta and Paulina worked together to reconstruct the entire timeline of the Duffy manufacturing deal. They pulled CRM logs, email threads, call recordings, and meeting notes. What they found was a clear pattern. I had originated the opportunity, built the relationship, managed the technical discussions, and closed the deal. The only evidence of anyone else's involvement was Nico's after-the-fact edits to the CRM system. More importantly, they discovered that Nico had deleted my original discovery notes and replaced them with generic templates. The system had kept every version, so they could see exactly what he'd removed and when. Paulina called me with an update. The audit shows a clear timeline of misrepresentation. Nico not only took credit for work he didn't do, but he actively deleted evidence of your contributions. What happens now? The General Counsel is flagging this as potential misconduct to the board's audit committee. This kind of behavior puts the company at legal and financial risk. I hung up feeling vindicated, but also strangely calm. I'd done everything right, documented everything properly, and protected both the client relationship and the company's interests. That evening, I got a text from Sylvie. Francis, I heard there might be some internal changes on your team. Just wanted to confirm that you'll still be our primary contact. I replied, I'll remain your primary contact per our agreement. The next morning brought a new development. Nico was making a desperate move to salvage his position. He'd scheduled a meeting with Sylvie's team to discuss an add-on to their contract, a $500,000 expansion that he wanted to close under Astrid's name. The problem was that he'd done this without consulting anyone. He'd sent Sylvie a DocuSign agreement for additional services, with Astrid listed as the account executive. Sylvie forwarded the document to me with a one-line question. Francis, is this legitimate? I nearly laughed out loud. Nico was trying to force through an unauthorized contract modification while under investigation for misconduct. I replied to Sylvie, this expansion wasn't authorized through proper channels. Also, the continuity clause in our original agreement prevents account changes without your written consent. I copied Paulina on my response. 5 minutes later, my phone rang. It was Paulina, and she sounded furious. Francis, please tell me your manager didn't just try to execute an unauthorized contract while under audit. I'm afraid that's exactly what happened. This is now officially a crisis. I'm canceling that DocuSign immediately and calling an emergency meeting with the executive team. By noon, legal had issued a company-wide memo about contractual integrity and proper authorization procedures. The emergency executive meeting happened the same day. I wasn't invited, but word traveled fast in our office. The audit committee had reviewed all the evidence, and they weren't happy. Nico tried one last desperate counterattack. In the next all-hands sales meeting, he stood up and called me insubordinate in front of the entire team. Francis has been working against management and hiding deals from the sales process, he announced. This kind of secretive behavior is unacceptable. The room went dead quiet. I felt all eyes on me as I slowly stood up. I used approved processes for all client interactions, I said calmly. The client specifically requested me as their primary contact, which was documented in our contract with legal's approval. Paulina, who was attending the meeting, nodded in confirmation. That's correct. All proper procedures were followed. Then, to everyone's surprise, Astrid stood up. "I need to say something," she said, her voice shaking slightly. "I didn't lead this account. Francis did all the work. I only made a presentation slide deck." The room buzzed with uncomfortable murmurs. Nico's face went pale, then red. "Meeting adjourned," Paulina said firmly. "Leadership team, please stay behind." I walked back to my desk feeling like I was in a movie. The truth was finally out. The leadership meeting ran long. I could see Nico, Marta, Paulina, and our head of HR through the conference room windows, having what looked like a very serious conversation. Around 3 p.m., Marta emerged from the meeting and walked straight to my desk. "Francis, can you join us?" I followed her back to the conference room. Nico looked defeated, slumped in his chair. Paulina had a folder open with all my documentation. "We've completed our review," Marta said. "The evidence is conclusive. You originated this opportunity, managed the client relationship, and closed the deal according to all company policies." She turned to a fresh page in the folder. "We have the CRM origin data showing your first contact with Duffy Manufacturing. We have the initial meeting transcript. We have your security audit tickets. We have the client's written attestation requesting you by name." Each piece of evidence pointed to the same conclusion. I had done the work, and Nico had tried to steal the credit. "The audit committee has made their recommendation to HR," Marta continued. "We'll be implementing changes to ensure this type of situation doesn't happen again." Nico finally spoke up. "I'd like to request legal representation." The room fell silent. When someone asks for a lawyer in a company meeting, everyone knows the situation has escalated beyond repair. By the next morning, everything had changed. Nico's badge no longer worked. Security escorted him out of the building with a cardboard box containing his personal items. There were no speeches, no goodbyes, no explanations. Astrid was reassigned to a legitimate training program with a manager who would actually teach her the business instead of using her as a pawn. She seemed relieved to be out of the middle of the drama. The sales floor felt different without Nico's loud voice and aggressive energy. People seemed more relaxed, more collaborative. Around lunchtime, I got a call from our CEO's assistant. "Ms. Gould, Mr. Harrison would like to meet with you tomorrow at 10 a.m. Are you available?" My heart skipped a beat. The CEO wanted to see me. I spent the evening preparing for every possible scenario. Was I in trouble for the way I'd handled things? Was the company unhappy about the internal investigation? Or was this something entirely different? I chose my best professional outfit and got to the office early the next morning. At exactly 10 a.m., I knocked on the CEO's door. "Francis, come in, please, have a seat." Theodore Harrison was younger than I'd expected, probably in his early 40s. "I want to thank you for how you handled this situation," he began. "Your documentation and professionalism protected both the client relationship and the company's reputation." "We have a problem," Theodore continued. "Nico's departure leaves a significant gap in our sales leadership. The team needs a manager, and several major accounts need oversight." He paused, watching my reaction. "I'd like to offer you Nico's position. Same team, bigger salary, and the respect you've already earned from your colleagues." It was tempting. Really tempting. A management role, a significant raise, and the satisfaction of taking over from the person who'd tried to undermine me. But I'd been expecting this conversation, and I'd already been having other discussions. "I'm honored by the offer," I said carefully, "but I need to tell you about another opportunity that's come up." Theodore raised an eyebrow. "Sylvie Duffy reached out to me directly. Duffy Manufacturing is launching a new innovation lab, and they want me to head up their strategic partnerships division." "That's unexpected," Theodore said. "What kind of role are they offering?" "Director of Strategic Partnerships, reporting directly to their CTO. I'd be building relationships between their innovation lab and technology vendors. It's exactly the kind of work I love, with a client who values what I bring to the table." Theodore was quiet for a long moment. "What would you need from us to make that transition happen?" We negotiated for 2 hours. Theodore was surprisingly supportive of my decision to leave, especially when he understood the role Duffy Manufacturing was offering me. "You've handled this entire situation with incredible professionalism," he said. "The company owes you a debt of gratitude. How can we make this transition work for everyone?" We agreed on a clean departure plan. I would spend 2 weeks transitioning the Duffy account and helping hire my replacement. The company would provide a glowing reference letter and a small consulting fee for my transition assistance. Most importantly, Theodore agreed to send a note to Duffy Manufacturing confirming their confidence in me and supporting the new partnership. "Francis, I have to ask," Theodore said as we wrapped up. "Did you plan this whole sequence of events?" I smiled. "I planned to protect my work and serve the client well. Everything else just followed naturally from those principles." "Impressive," he said. "Duffy Manufacturing is lucky to have you." That afternoon, I called Sylvie to confirm the details of my new role. She was thrilled. "Francis, we've been hoping to find someone with your combination of technical knowledge and relationship skills. This partnership between our companies could be the beginning of something much bigger." I spent the rest of the day cleaning out my desk and organizing my files for whoever would take over my remaining accounts. My last day at the company was quiet and satisfying. I handed over my accounts to capable colleagues and finished documenting all my open opportunities. The Duffy Manufacturing transition was seamless. Sylvie was happy to continue working with me. Several team members stopped by to say goodbye and thank me for standing up to Nico's behavior. Apparently, I hadn't been his only victim, just the one who'd finally fought back effectively. Astrid came by in the afternoon. "Francis, I want to apologize for getting caught up in Nico's scheme. I should have known better." "You were put in an impossible position," I told her. "Don't let this experience make you cynical. There are good managers out there who will help you grow." "What you did was incredible," she said. "You didn't get angry or emotional. You just let the truth speak for itself." "Sometimes that's all you need," I replied. As I packed the last of my personal items, I reflected on the lessons I'd learned. Document everything. Protect your relationships. Trust the process. When you do the right thing consistently, the system usually works in your favor. I didn't send any goodbye message to Nico. I didn't post anything on social media about the drama. I just quietly transitioned to my new role and moved forward. My first day at Duffy Manufacturing was everything I'd hoped for. Sylvie introduced me to the Innovation Lab team, and I could immediately see the potential for exciting partnerships. As I settled into my new office, I thought about the past few months. The situation with Nico could have ended very differently if I hadn't prepared properly. 6 months later, I was thriving in my new role. The partnerships I'd developed were generating significant value for Duffy Manufacturing and their vendors. Sylvie had become not just a client, but a mentor and friend. Nico had tried to steal credit for my work, but in the end, he'd given me something much more valuable: the motivation to find a role where my contributions would be truly appreciated.